period pain relief. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I really appreciate you. So let's talk about period pain relief. So, do you get period pain? You're wondering why you get period pain? Or perhaps you already know why you get period pain or painful periods, and you would like to know what can actually provide relief for you naturally. So let's talk about that today, shall we? Let's talk about period pain relief. So hello, I am so thrilled to be here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michelle Cooke, and I'm a period and hormone naturopath, a naturopathic fertility educator, and a practitioner, so a naturopathic emotional release practitioner. And I help women struggling with their menstrual cycles experience easy, pain-free periods, balanced hormones, and emotional well-being. I'm all over the place today. I told you that before, so just bear with me. And basically, I'm the founder and director of Reproductive Wellness, which is a clinic located in Melbourne, and I see patients both online and face-to-face. So it's a pleasure to come on this evening to talk to you all. And if you have any questions or comments as we go through the live today, be sure to pop them down in the comments box down below, and I'll be sure to answer those for you. If you're a bit shy and you think of it later, I would be more than happy to answer those for you. So just be sure to pop them there. So period pain or dysmenorrhea, that's sort of the medical jargon term for period pain. I would like to start by saying that just because you experience period pain does not mean that it's normal or should be put up with, or something that you've just got to grit your teeth and just get through it because you're a woman and you get periods. You don't have to put up with it, okay? And it generally means that your body's trying to alert you that something's not quite right. And it may seem a bit mean at the time. You might think, oh, that's a bit harsh, body. Why are you doing that? But it's just letting you know, hey, I'm waving this little red flag to let you know that something's wrong, and that's why you're experiencing the period pain, because it's the only way I can kind of show you that something's wrong, and I'm trying to get your attention. So dysmenorrhea actually comes from the Greek word. So dys means difficulty, difficulty with, so that's the dys part, and menorrhea is having to do with menstruation or your periods, okay? So it makes sense when you put those two together. You're having difficulty with menstruation or your periods, right? So it makes sense. So there's two different types of period pain or dysmenorrhea. So there's primary dysmenorrhea, that's the first one. And that is when the uterus or the uterine muscle specifically is misbehaving, okay? It's being a bit naughty. It's being a naughty uterus, and it's causing cramps for you. And the uterus has gone a bit wild, right? But the pain isn't actually due to an underlying condition. It could be due to these reasons, okay? So this can be due to an imbalance of prostaglandins. So they are hormone-like substances in the body, and we do need them. So don't be all hostile towards the prostaglandins. We need them for healthy, normal periods, okay? But when you have high levels of these prostaglandins, this will increase those muscular contractions that are happening in the uterus, and it will result in that dreaded period pain. It's awful, isn't it? Now, the second reason why this primary dysmenorrhea takes place can be due to an issue with uterine tone. So the uterus and the tone of that actual muscle. So muscle contractions in the uterus will normally take place to get the blood out of your cervix, through the vagina, and out of the body. Okay, so that's the normal function of healthy contractions that are occurring there. But normally there is a resting phase in between those contractions, okay? So the blood that flows through the muscle of your uterus will carry nutrients and oxygen to the uterine wall, which we need, right? We need it to be functioning normally with healthy blood flow, oxygenation, and nutrients to do what it has to do. So, if your uterus doesn't have that resting phase, if that doesn't take place, that will result in muscle spasm or those period cramps or period pain, okay? Or painful periods. Now, this type is generally diagnosed when all other causes to that period pain have been excluded. So it's kind of diagnosis by exclusion. So it needs to be ruled out by these conditions mentioned below, which are they're secondary dysmenorrhea reasons, okay? So that's the other type of period pain. So this is due to an underlying medical condition, and that's why you've got those period pains. So what could those things be? Well, let's discuss what they are. And it's important to note before I go into those conditions, the pain could be bad or not so bad either way, regardless of whether you have primary dysmenorrhea or secondary dysmenorrhea. Either or could take place, okay? So just because the period pain's really bad doesn't mean you have an underlying medical condition, and same goes for the primary dysmenorrhea. It doesn't necessarily have to match the condition, if that makes sense. So let's discuss the different types of secondary dysmenorrhea. So it could be due to endometriosis. So endometriosis is when endometrial-like tissue that normally, so endometrial tissue is normally in the lining of that uterus, but it's when tissue that's similar to that endometrial tissue is actually proliferating and growing outside the uterine environment. So it's not necessarily endometrial tissue per se, it's endometrial-like tissue. So it's growing outside the uterus and it's causing a lot of pain and discomfort and heavy periods and things like that. Fibroids, so that can be another reason. So they're benign growths that form inside the muscular wall of that uterus, and they can cause painful periods as well. Adenomyosis, so that could be due to the tissue that normally lines the uterus, it actually is growing inside that muscular wall of the uterus, and it shouldn't be there, okay? Another reason why secondary dysmenorrhea might take place, or periods, painful periods, is pelvic inflammatory disease. So that is an infection of the reproductive system. So that could be an infection happening in the uterus, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, or the cervix, and it's usually caused by STDs, primarily things like chlamydia and gonorrhea. So that can also cause period pain as well, but it can also be silent as well. So it could be causing problems but not actually giving you any symptoms. So it's a bit nasty, that one, the pelvic inflammatory disease. So the types of period pain, and this really varies from woman to woman. You know, the type of period pain that they experience. It could be sharp, it could be stabbing, it could be dull, it could be dragging, etc. And it can happen actually before, during, or after your period. There's all differing things that can happen depending on what's going on for you. So in amongst that, there could be congestive dysmenorrhea. So that's when there's a sense of heaviness, or there's a dull background ache, so that's more congestive, painful periods. There can be spasmodic dysmenorrhea, and that's when there's episodes of cramping like pain because the muscles are going into spasm and causing that pain for you. So we kind of talked about this earlier, so the causes of period pain or cramps. So that's actually mentioned underneath the primary dysmenorrhea. So I spoke about those reasons. And then secondary dysmenorrhea, remember that's due to actual underlying medical conditions, and that's why it's actually happening for you. So, what can you actually do then to provide some period pain relief? And there are things that can provide relief for period pain, but at the end of the day, you need to remember we need to rule out why it's actually happening for you. Is there an underlying medical condition there? Is it happening due to high prostaglandins? Is it happening, due to other reasons? We need to actually rule that out for you first, because then we've got the causative reason behind it, and then we're able to successfully implement a treatment plan for you based on that, because it will be different, the treatment, depending on what's actually going on for you. But here's some general things to consider. So I'm going to mention some 3 tips today that can actually help to relieve that period pain for you. So number 1, consider removing cow's dairy. So this contains A1 beta casein, which is a type of protein. It's a very large protein. It's difficult for the body to actually break down and digest it. It converts into beta casomorphin 7, which arises in inflammation in the gut, and it reduces motility. So it actually will slow down your ability to actually do a poo, right? Because it's slowing down that motility of your bowel. So not good. So inflammation in the gut can definitely lead to hormone imbalance, particularly estrogen excess. And we need to remember, if we've got too much estrogen in the body, the higher your estrogen, the higher those prostaglandins. And remember, we do need prostaglandins in healthy levels, but if they're at higher levels, this is going to contribute to period pain, okay? And what was I going to say there? So yeah, I spoke about that. So too much is not good. Remember, that promotes inflammation and period pain. So what's the alternative then if you don't have cow's dairy? So when I speak about cow's dairy, I'm talking about milk, cheese, and yogurt. So we need to be switching out those for something that's going to not be so inflammatory and potentially contributing towards period pain. So we need to be switching to something like goat's or sheep's products, because they contain the A2 casein protein molecule, which is smaller. It's easy for our body to digest and break down. So we need to be doing that. And it's not as inflammatory to the reproductive system as well. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you could consider, well, obviously you wouldn't be having dairy, but coconut yogurt is a good kind of switch out for you as well. Okay. Yes, I totally agree. So I've just had a comment here. Yes, it's good to avoid dairy for inflammation, definitely. Yep, I couldn't agree more. And it's such a simple thing that you can do as well, to switch it out for something that's anti-inflammatory. That's, the way to go. And warming herbs, so things like cinnamon and ginger. So these are really warming herbs that increase healthy blood flow and circulation to the uterus as well, and they're particularly good to ease period pain. And the best way to have these is actually to have them as a tea. If you can, try to get it in its most natural form. So try not to go for tea bags. They tend to be not as strong. So going for, an organic tea, that's the actual ginger root, and making that up as a tea and having that sort of 3 times a day throughout the day where you've got those painful periods can be really helpful. And also, cinnamon tea as well. So you can basically be using, you know, the quills, or sometimes the bark is chopped up and it's organic, and you can have that as a tea as well. So I'd be having that sort of 3 cups a day. Allow it to infuse for about 5 to 10 minutes to really extract all those beautiful properties that are going to give you those benefits of helping with your painful periods. Another thing to try would be castor oil packs. So you may or may not have heard of this, but basically what you do is you're grabbing a castor oil that's organic preferably, and you're getting some sort of cloth, so generally you know, like a flannel or something like that, that you can fold it a few times and actually saturate that cloth in some warm castor oil. Okay, so allowing that to actually soak into the cloth and popping it over your pelvic region, so generally over the area where your uterus and pelvis is, and then actually popping a hot water bottle on top of that to allow it to actually infuse or penetrate into the skin. And you know, castor oil packs have so many benefits. The one thing that I would recommend though is definitely do not use castor oil packs during your period, okay? Especially if you've got a heavy period, this can actually make it worse. So we're doing this on the days when you don't have your period to decrease the risk of actually having a painful period next time. So yeah, do not use these when you have your period, that's for sure. So the benefits are so many. It can actually help with liver detoxification, lymphatic flow, so that's involved in removing toxins from that pelvic region. It's improving circulation to the area. And a healthy blood flow to our uterus, our fallopian tubes, our ovaries is really, really beneficial. Because that's going to increase function of those organs, and it's also going to promote healing as well. So it can actually be helpful to actually assist in reducing scar formation as well, and adhesions, particularly related to endometriosis, for example. And it also assists with healthy hormone balance too. So many good benefits of doing this. And it can also help reduce pain and inflammation as well. So doing this sort of 3 times a week for about 3 months is really beneficial. And you know, it's a good time to kind of zone out and have a bit of me time. So you can pop on some music or a podcast and leave it on for about 30 to 60 minutes, allowing it to infuse and penetrate and just relax. And yeah, it's just sort of a good time to unwind as well. And then after you've done it sort of 3 times a week for 3 months, reducing it down to once per week, and that should be enough to kind of maintain it as well. So there's some suggestions that you can definitely try. Obviously it depends why you're getting that period pain, and there's a lot more to it. Those things just on their own are not going to be enough. We need to find out why it's actually happening for you first. So, can a naturopath actually help with period pain or painful periods? So the answer is yes, absolutely. And particularly a naturopath that specializes in periods and hormones like myself. We can definitely help you get to the bottom of it, you know, help you if you've got any one of those underlying medical conditions that's causing pain, or if you've got high prostaglandins, or if you've got an imbalance in the gut that's contributing to that, we can help you with that. So treatment wise, in terms of helping you, we would be using things like natural medicine, so herbal medicine, nutritional medicine, diet and lifestyle advice, and tips and tricks like I spoke to you about before. There's heaps more things that you could be doing as well to help, but they're just some nice things to get you started with. And also I use NER, so Naturopathic Emotional Release, to see if there's any underlying emotion or stress in relation to the period pain that you're experiencing too. Because at the end of the day, we can work on the physical till the cows come home, but if we don't address that emotional or underlying stress component, it can be difficult for your body to actually heal. So in terms of assessment, I'd be looking at things like nutritional deficiencies, so through a blood test. So looking at things like vitamin D, for example. If your vitamin D is low, that can actually contribute to period pain. If your magnesium is low, that can also contribute to cramps or period pain as well. So things like that are really important to address. Obviously, looking at hormonal imbalance is very important. So looking at your girly hormones, so estrogen, progesterone and testosterone, to see what they're doing. Remembering that estrogen excess can cause a rise in prostaglandins, which increase the pain that you're experiencing. So very, very important to see what's going on there, and make sure that you have adequate liver detoxification, that you're doing a poo every day, so there's somewhere for that estrogen to go, are all essential aspects into regulating your hormones and helping towards decreasing that period pain for you. It's also very important to look at gut health. So there's countless studies now on gut health, or a bad bacteria to good bacteria imbalance in the gut, and those bad bacteria or bacteria taking advantage of the situation producing LPS or endotoxins. So they're producing these toxins that are actually traveling from the gut into the bloodstream and into that pelvic cavity, which actually contributes to hormonal imbalance and, you guessed it, period pain. So we need to be looking at what's happening with your gut bacteria, because that can potentially increase the risk of having painful periods as well. Not only a bacterial imbalance in the large bowel, but also a bacterial imbalance in the small bowel as well, which is known as SIBO, or small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So that's a biggie, and it's often correlated with endometriosis. So I have spoken about that before, that a lot of women that have endometriosis can also have SIBO as well, and it's a contributing factor. So that's small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So we need to be looking at that, right? Because there's different types of bacteria as well that can be contributing to histamine and producing too much histamine in the body, and also contributing to inflammation in the body and period pain. So we really do need to consider that as well. Are there any more questions? I'm just going to have a look on Facebook as well. Just check Instagram too. Oh, I love coconut yogurt. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? I find that if I have too much though, it makes me feel a bit sick. I think it's just, because it's so rich in fats and things like that. So I usually have just a small amount of that, but yeah, it is delicious. Okay. So moving forward, if you would like help with your period pain, I would absolutely love to help you, and I invite you to book a free discovery call. So it's 15 minutes together where you can sort of decide whether we're a good fit, and also to see how we would be working together, and any other questions that you have, we can cover it in that as well. So basically the link is in the bio on my Instagram for the free discovery call. If you're watching on Facebook or Facebook or YouTube, I'll pop a link down below for you so that you can book. And remember that all these Instagram and Facebook lives are actually on my website under my blog. So there's a link in my Instagram bio to that, so you can go in there and check out other topics that I've discussed and see what's there. I've basically got the video at the top and all the written text underneath, so it's good if you're more of a visual learner. You've got kind of both of those there to look through, and there's heaps and heaps of topics that I've discussed. So you can basically head to reproductivewellness.com.au/blog and they'll all be there, okay? So I would like to thank you so much for watching. I apologize that I was late coming on today. I ran out of time and I just had one of those days where time just flew by and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm even going to get this finished, but I did. And so I appreciate you turning up and watching. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, pop them down below as I mentioned earlier. And if you're watching on my YouTube channel, be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll be here every Wednesday talking about periods, menstrual cycles, hormones, and also women's health. So I really look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Bye.